Hello there, Seraphim17 once again. This is my Revelations DLC, Prince of Darkness difficulty walkthrough. We're doing, I think this chapter's called The Cursed Blood. I'm going to put it all together as The Cursed Blood, even though one part of it will be probably the Chaos Claws or the Chaos Gauntlets, or I'm not entirely sure what the move is called that we're trying to get back. But the plot on the DLC is pretty much shoehorned into the prologue area. It's kind of lazy. I was expecting a little bit more. You know, the promotional dribble that they always put with this kind of thing always makes it out to be more interesting than it is. You know, find out what Alucard was doing before he became the Prince of Darkness's buddy. And it's never what you want it to be. It's always generally something very contrived, and this one's probably the most contrived setup for a DLC I think I've ever seen, because the castle senses that Dracula's about to come back, so they nick his powers and hide them in the castle. And because he's going to be weak when he gets back, he's not going to be able to get that stuff back, because they have absolutely no faith in a weakened Dracula, which is kind of patronising for the poor guy. So instead, his wife and our mother comes to us and says we need to get the powers back, and so we can put them in a location so that Daddy can get them. Which is kind of weird, because if they wanted Daddy to be able to get them, why the hell did you put them in such complicated places after doing all this? You know, it's such a strange conceit. But we're now going for the claws, for the chaos power, and there's a lot more platforming in this particular instance. Do not stay on these bookcases or these cupboards or closets, whatever the hell they are, for too long, or you'll fall into the water, which is in fact blood, not water at all. This room here, immediately go where I go to kill these pools. If you don't, you're going to have to fight skeletons, and while the skeletons are nothing on the first Lords of Shadow, they're still annoying. And if you've got skeletons up and you're trying to kill the bloodstains, the skeletons are going to be a nightmare, so just do what I do here and you'll make this fight pointless. You know, you don't give them the opportunity to do what they've been designed to do, and it's always cool. But there's also a couple of puzzles here, and there's a puzzle that I've actually found out a better way to do it, which I guess it was kind of staring me in the face because there's a grid, and I just completely forgot to do it. But it involves putting a shield down and then running back to a door. And I'm going to show you the way that I've done it every single time, aside from afterwards when I was going back through after I recorded this, and that is to drop it and then just kind of sprint. But it's always a very close result. So close, in fact, I think I kind of knew it probably wasn't the way you were meant to do it, but I'm stubborn, so I did it that way. But the other way of doing it is to use the bats to go through the grating, and then you can just drop off and you have a much more time to get through the door. But I never did that on the recording, so you're going to see me do it the Usain Bolt method, which is equally as effective, it's just a little bit tenser. But one thing you've got to give these Castlevanias is, when you consider a lot of the game design is literally pull, switch, open door, they don't half design some pretty creative and interesting looking switches. And I think that's doing it right. Because even Gears of War, the game that had so many arbitrary moments of turn the valve, or point the button to open the door, or, you know, listen to the communications while we load the next area, even that game had some pretty fucking dull moments. But this game, it knows it's contrived. It knows that all you're doing is flicking a switch to open a door to continue doing what you've been doing. So it at least puts some really nice art design into it, and it almost makes you forgive them for the incredibly lazy game design. Which, I say incredibly lazy, it serves the purpose. There needs to be a point where we come and we get past it. We get past pull switch open door. I think there's better ways of doing it, and one of the best ones I've seen was the God of Wars, because in God of Wars they always had you pull in a damn chain of a giant statue to open a door, or, you know, like fighting on an eagle that flew into a door, and various other things, which essentially they were the same archetype of pull switch open door, but they masked it in a really interesting way. And unlike this, which I'm not going to cut up giving the Mercury Stream any slack for this, because this is unforgivable. Give me a fucking load screen than make me stand in a damn room. I would rather watch a load screen, I really would. Just be honest. Like, do what Tekken did on the PlayStation, where it let you play Space Invaders while it loaded, because it knew the load times were incredibly long. Earlier on I mentioned that I took a spear to the face because the character didn't move. This is the sequence. All you have to do here is use the harpy to break certain points of this traversal section, and do it quick enough so that the blood doesn't catch you. On my first playthrough on this, the blood was up my arse the entire time. I'm not entirely sure why I managed to do it quite quickly on this one. Maybe I just played bad before, but you know, this is very doable. But just bear in mind, if you mess around, if you make any mistakes, the blood gets really close, and if it touches you, you're done. Game over. And on to my least favourite fight of the DLC. The harpy, annoying harpy moment. So there's two of the, like, former friends of Dracula who then got corrupted by blood and started being really angry at you. And then there's a harpy. And there's a respawn on whichever one you kill. So you'll notice another harpy's going to turn up, because I thought, kill the harpy first, get rid of the arsehole, then fight the guys I actually quite enjoy fighting. Turns out, no, the harpy. But the thing that this game does, which I'd forgot because I've not played it in a while, is every single enemy has an anti-air / an anti-distance move, which has almost perfect aim and knocks you over. And I hate that, I really do. I think it's just cheesy. And these enemies do it. So if you focus on the harpy, sometimes they'll just knock you out of the sky with this screeching, like, air voice attack, and it does some pretty good damage. And it's just that frustration fest of getting knocked over. Like, if you're at any distance, some enemies will spit at you and it's super tracking, other enemies will throw knives. It's one of those things where they essentially designed the game so you couldn't cow it out, you couldn't run away, you couldn't just, you know, shoot people from a distance. The best and safest distance in almost every instance is middle to close. And this is what I mean by Alucard not really having good range. This thing is just spacing me, and I'm getting caught because all I want to do is bash attack and kill it, because there's really no creative way to do anything with it. Like, in the main game, you can freeze them, and it makes them drop down, and then you can do whatever you want with them, and it's a really fun, interesting way to fight. In this DLC, like, maybe there's a move that Alucard has that's super useful for aerial fights, but I didn't really buy any of the moves. You know, I just like to counter, like to get stuff done. This is another interesting area of game design that I'm hoping we're going to get past in the next generation. I don't really understand what that achieves, aside from maybe Dracula really wanted to tone up in his purgatory, so that he made it so that it was incredibly difficult to open doors, and just the simple act of opening a door was enough to give him a nice pump. Because what if you have a child, and your child wants to go through that room? Maybe, like, you put the kitchen on the other side of that room, child starves to death. You know, it's not really child safe. But then again, Dracula's probably not the most gracious host when it comes to children, because they probably have really sweet blood. I suppose that's what paedophiles will tell you. They're just so sweet. So, this particular instance here, there's an area that you can use the bats to get to, and once again, you're going to have to be quick on here, and you're going to have to use the wolf to do the jump. So, do not do the wolf and do every jump, or you'll sink and die, which I did twice. Which is funny, because I did this first time on my first playthrough. I just played worse this time. You want to let go on each of the jumps. That way you guarantee that Alucard doesn't take a dip in the strangely incredibly damaging water. Blood stuff. Which, considering he's a vampire, he has a really hard time with blood. This kind of seems a bit hypocritical. Or maybe it's ironic, who knows. But use the bats to get through this little traversal area, and we're going to have to pull another switch. And it's another one of the reverse time with the ability to fix the switch, so that you can pull the switch and get through the door that the switch opened. And this is another instance of a puzzle that is quite a simple A to B puzzle, but unless you know where B is, you know, it's a pretty strict time limit to do a lot of stuff. And this definitely helps, but once again, I think the timing on some of these, it leaves no room for errors. You know, it literally wants you to do it spot on, and if you do it wrong, which is something I do quite a lot, it can be tricky. But continue offering your blood to these incredibly ugly looking pot holder men. Not too sure what their job is, or if they were ever once alive, or if they're just really ornate statues, but they don't get much love in this game because they're essentially just doorkeepers. Inanimate bouncers carrying jugs of blood. But now you've drained that, you can come down here. I actually had something really interesting happen on the next particular sequence. I'd got to the point where I used the reverse time power, and the timer had hit 0 and it didn't do what it was meant to do. It didn't go back, it just kept on 0, and it meant I could never use that power, and thus I could never get through the next door. So I soft-locked the game in... essentially, it's not a soft-lock, it was just I broke the game. Just, you know, dead. Nothing I could do. But thank you for watching, and you take care now.